Hey guys, welcome back. Coach Millie with us this week again. Coach Sam, Coach Josh here from CrossFit. We're talking about, we started a series last week around the 10 general physical skills that CrossFit views as kind of all-inclusive fitness. And so last week we talked about cardiorespiratory endurance, and then we talked a little bit about kind of where all this comes from. And so we're referencing these 10 general physical skills that are found in the What is Fitness article that CrossFit put out in 2002. And it was really the first time and a broad or a more inclusive definition of fitness was really created there.
It was the first one that I think that anyone actually said something.
Yeah, right.
It was mostly
what is fitness? The act of being fit.
Right. It was like, oh yeah, we have the definition, but it tells you nothing. But we don't know how to define this.
Mm-hmm.
Give you measurable and attainable.
Yes.
It's like saying, like, what is fast? Not slow.
Not slow. Exactly.
The absence of slow movement.
Yeah. So as we talk about this, like just as a review, let's talk a little bit, Millie, about like what are we talking about when we talk about these 10 general physical skills? Let's maybe highlight them again, and then just kind of some quick nuggets on that.
Sure. So the 10 general physical skills are cardiovascular and respiratory. Those two kind of go together. Endurance, stamina, strength, flexibility, power, speed, coordination, agility, balance, and accuracy. I have them written down because I will not remember them.
No, I don't know. Been doing this for so many years. I still have to like do my fingers. Like, yeah.
Shelley's got one for each.
That's what. Yeah, he put them on. He just put them on his arm.
So you are as fit as you are as, I guess, proficient in each of these categories, each of these areas. And ideally, the thought process is you want, if you want to be, physically fit, and again, that's a very generic term, these kind of help define it more and break down what that actually means. You want to make sure you're including all 10 of these in your training regimen and in how you train so that you can be proficient in each of these areas. If you want to kind of break them into two different categories, you have your the cardiovascular and respiratory. Stamina, strength, and flexibility are physiological adaptations that are improved through training. And then you have more the neurologic group, which is coordination, agility, balance, and accuracy. And those are improved through practice. Think of that like muscle memory almost. And then you have the kind of the middle two, power and speed. And this is fitness math. Those are results of combining the other two is how you get that speed and power. So that's kind of how all of these work together, and how you want to make sure they're included or thought about in your programming.
Yeah, like we should be checking the box. I actually like the whole fitness math thing because that's kind of how I do think about this stuff is as an equation. Like I tell people, like, one of the only like real big math classes that I have brought into my life is algebra. And to me, algebra is the objective form of problem solving. And so like you look at this stuff, that is a lot about how I do think about it. It's like, all right, are we checking these boxes? Are we getting a touch here, here, and here, and that sort of stuff. So I actually agree with you kind of laughed it off, but I actually do 100% agree with the idea that there is an element of it that can be a little bit of a math equation. It allows us to have some level of objectivity.
Yeah. And if you're not getting an answer you want, then you have to go back and look at the equation, which is your program, and what are you missing, or what are you, to add that in. So today we're going to discuss stamina. So Coach Josh, what is stamina?
So I know Coach Sam and I over the years, like we read definitions, we know the verbatim definitions, but I know we also, over time you start to figure out how to explain this to clients, in a way that they can understand. And I think Coach Sam will kind of give us a couple of insights there. But basically, stamina is the body's ability to process, deliver, store, and then utilize energy. Okay. So last week when we talked about cardiorespiratory endurance,
got it?
That's simple. It's super simple, right?
Episode done.
Right, we're good here. I told you everything you know. But last week when we talked about the cardiorespiratory endurance side of things, that was the body's ability to transport oxygen, utilize oxygen. Well, oxygen the circulatory system, the respiratory system, those are the transport systems, right? But stamina is the body's ability to actually take the usage of those things and actually utilize them into exerting effort potentially. So, Coach, what would be like maybe
The
simpler definition
all right.
there?
So the definition of stamina that I've come to enjoy or appreciate over the decade I've been doing this, it's the amount of time a muscle or a muscle group can perform at or near max capacity. So at that point, it's thinking of this where if cardiovascular is just simply keeping our, as we talked about in the last episode, cardiovascular is simply our ability to just kind of keep moving. Our stamina is how many times can we repeat bigger efforts.
Yeah.
So your cardio, so like you cannot out stamina your cardiovascular system.
Sure.
So in a sense, stamina is a system of the cardiovascular, like it's a quality of your cardiovascular system. This to me becomes more about application, like life application, whereas jogging for an hour doesn't really mimic most lives. But when you're out in the yard and you're got a wheelbarrow and you're hauling stuff, how long can you continue to repeat that effort that requires some amount of strength and power, even if it's lower levels like a wheelbarrow or farmer carries and stuff like that, all the way to throwing something over to your friend. Like you guys are working, hey, throw this over here. How many times can you keep doing that?
Yeah, and I think you hit on this as well as like the cardiorespiratory or cardiovascular respiratory systems. Okay, we're thinking about blood, we're thinking about oxygen, we're thinking about those systems of air and blood. But when we think about stamina, because somebody would say like, well, what's really the difference between I hear the word endurance, I hear the word stamina, and maybe that could be interchangeable. When I think about the cardiorespiratory systems and their endurance, when we think about stamina, start to equate that to the muscles, right? So like you're saying, the movements that we're doing, actually, the system that drives all those movements is the cardiovascular system, the respiratory system.
Can we continue to deliver fuel to the muscle groups that we need?
Yeah.
It's the difference between, again, going on a low intensity walk, jog, hike for a couple hours. If we're going to get right into like the CrossFit realm, it would be us doing weightlifting EMOM or like repeating a weightlifting effort, a big power movement every 90 seconds for maybe 8 sets today.
Right. Yeah, it's weird. I think we're doing that today. Yeah. So I want to circle back to the math thing, because part of the reason why we do these episodes and part of the reason why we're explaining some of these things is sometimes people don't always understand, like, why am I doing this movement that might be obscure or might be might not be the normal stuff that falls into the realm of exercise, right? It's not a barbell deadlift, or it's not a box jump, or it's not the rower, whatever else. Like, it's not the common things. So maybe it's a more uncommon movement or an uncommon activity or uncommon work set that we might do in certain things. So time domain or whatever it may be. And if we circle back to the whole idea of the fitness math, right? Everybody likes the stuff like the deadlift, okay, which is an example of power. Okay. Somebody might like the running fast, which is an example of speed, right? But those two pieces, right, and power too, you're right. But those two pieces, like Coach Millie hit on, those are the results of development in cardiorespiratory endurance, stamina, what was our other ones? Our strength and flexibility. Those 4 things that are training stimulated. And then the other 4 pieces of, accuracy, agility, balance, and coordination to create power and speed.
Yep.
Like, and that's where, like, I think sometimes someone might see the disconnect, like, why do I need to have better balance? Why do I need to have better flexibility? Well, I can show you that if you have poor flexibility, when you go to to perform a movement like the snatch, which is a healthy balance of speed and power, if you have a lack of flexibility, then your capacity to perform the snatch will decrease, right? Yeah. So I just making that connection, I think, is huge for a client to understand.
And it's really cool because the other piece of the puzzle at a certain point, why are all of these important? Create a big enough gap And the way I like to think about it, it's expression of power. It's an expression of strength. Like we've got people that are very strong, but cannot snatch 135 pounds, which is in weightlifting world, a pretty light, not a light, not a heavy lift for somebody who trains on a frequent basis. At a certain point, if your balance or flexibility is so poor, that is going to immediately throttle the amount of strength you can actually express. And that's why I say like the Olympic lifts are not strength lifts, they are skill lifts that require an elite level of strength and power. But they're actually more skill lifts because every skill that you have, any element of that, and these skills that are deficient will throttle your ability to express the power you do have.
Absolutely.
And
it's not a lack of strength that leads that person to be unable to do that.
Correct.
Yeah. Typically. So cool. Well, we're gonna answer a couple questions today. So number one, and we'll just kind of guide along as have some conversation around this. But the first thing we're talking about is why stamina is important. And we're kind of hitting on why all of these fundamental skills are important, but why it's important, and we kind of highlighted this last week in our conversations, is we typically have three categories of clients that we work with. We are a gym, and most people show up to the gym because they want to lose weight. Okay, the pretty standard situation when we sit down is hey, I want to change the way I look, and typically that comes down to weight loss or fat loss, as we try to be a little more specific to that. Improving muscle tone, something there, right? So there's the physique style thing there. The second thing is performance, right? So we have clients that want to either compete athletically or want to compete athletically, or they want to perform better at something, not even just CrossFit or weightlifting.
Yeah, we got people in here that are CrossFit or maybe a strength sport that's present in CrossFit.
Yeah.
Or it's, Corey Easton plays soccer.
Yeah.
Plays in men's leagues.
Yeah. So the performance side of things.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's not just specifically what we do. It's about being an accessory to those field sports.
Definitely. And then the last thing is function, right? So the functional fitness is typically like it's a quality of life. It's function and longevity. So that doesn't just mean that that's with our 55 and older group either. That's just, hey, I'm in my mid 30s and I want to be able to play with my kids more effectively, so that I can help them have a better quality of life and I can have a better relationship with them. So that's what we call like the people that say, I just want to feel better, or I just want to be able to do my life better, right? So we call those more our functional athletes, maybe. So those three categories of why that's important to each one. And then what does stamina look like in a training setting? So we'll talk a little bit about like, what do these do? If I want to train stamina, what does that look like from a programming perspective? And then lastly, what does stamina look like in a real life setting? I think you kind of started to touch on that a little bit ago. Is what does this matter to like the real life stuff that we do? So first of all, let's talk a little bit like, why do you guys believe stamina is important for our fat loss clients? Like what I know I have some thoughts there, but like, what would you guys say is like, if you had a client that's asking, hey,
why?
We'll give the example of why am I doing this movement? Hey, well, we're building your muscular stamina here. Okay. All right. Why is that important to me? What kind of answers would you explain that to a client?
Well, I mean, initially, my first thought is the more stamina that we have, the more we can move for longer, which then increases that caloric burn that you're going to have. I know we're pretty good about having like a 25-minute mover or a 30-minute AMRAP every week, every other week, and just the ability to move for a length of time. Because that again increases that caloric burn, and also with that building of lean muscle mass, it makes it easier to burn body fat, and just muscular endurance kind of promotes that. If you have the muscular endurance, you have build the lean muscle mass to more efficiently burn that body fat. Yeah, if we talk fitness math again, right? So we take an example of like an AMRAP, right? If I have 15 minutes to get work done and my muscular endurance is at a level that I can complete, let's say the AMRAP is comprised of 10 box jumps and 10 push presses and 10 sit-ups and 10 pull-ups. All right, so there's 40 reps per round, and my muscular endurance allows me to complete 3 rounds to accumulate 120 reps of work in there, whereas Coach Sam's muscular endurance allows him to complete a full other round than me. He got 40 more reps of work in there, and so his muscular endurance allowed him
he had the capacity to accumulate more work in the same amount of time I did. To whereas as I improve that muscular endurance, that ability to continue to repeat those efforts, right? Then I can get more work out of my body, which then therefore leads me down the path of, better caloric burn, more work getting accomplished, more development of the muscles, all of those pieces of the puzzle, right? Anything else on that, Coach?
Really, the only thing I really have to add to that is what we know about weightlifting and fat loss in the first place. So we know that the resistance training the science seems to be leaning that the resistance training is actually the better fat burner. So as we build more stamina, we can do more of that work. So it all ties into everything you're saying, but like just simply directed at the fat loss client. This is our more efficient way.
Right, rather than, you think of the hours on the treadmill.
Yeah. Like,
More-
are you gonna walk for 30 minutes? Or are you gonna do a light row, like some step ups, some elevator, like the elevator sit ups? So do that stuff for 30 minutes. We know that one of those has a better fat burn like result or efficiency than the other.
Better, more bang for your buck, or
Yes, there we go.
Time, you're better off to challenge your muscles more than just walk on. I mean, they're all beneficial, but
I think, yeah, you use the phrase, the word there is efficiency, right? I can do this more efficiently. The more efficient path, right?
Yes.
And most of us, if you're wanting the quick fix, okay, which there is none, just so you know. But if I had to ask Coach, what should I be focused on most for the biggest bang for my buck to get this response as efficiently as possible? Working from the stamina perspective is probably a faster route there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we learn, I feel like the more I go down this path, the more discussions I have, the more I realize that the things that we need to do simply for longevity and health, and the things we need to do for performance are actually mostly the same. There's very little overlap. So whether or not you're thinking efficiency, I've got an off season, I've got 3 months to prepare for this season, or I am trying to lose weight, those methods are actually pretty similar.
Yeah.
It's a matter of like how like the true degree to which the other details are a necessity.
Yeah.
If you want to be an Olympic, you want to be a competitive performance weightlifter, you have to understand how to keep your toes locked into the floor during that lift. If you're a fat loss client, you're in here trying to do something other than just walk on the treadmill, it's going to be helpful to do that, but the true necessity of it is a little bit less.
Right. Well, I think what Glassman always said, our individual needs don't vary by kind, it's by scale, by degree, right?
Yeah.
So my grandma and the Olympic weightlifter should, they both have the same.
They still need to develop all 10 of these.
They still have the same needs. It's just by what degree they have those needs, and for what purpose, right?
Right.
And I think that that's a good segue into the performance athlete. I mean, and if you have some more nuggets on this, but like it's really no different for the performance athlete, right?
It just becomes more directed and probably specific. I mean, like if we're going to be a performance athlete, we need to know where we're going. You can't just sit there and say, I'm a performance athlete. Perform at what?
Yeah.
CrossFit, football, soccer, hockey. I mean, like, so we look at like stamina and stuff like this. Like, okay, so for the hockey player, I'm really trying to build that system. For those that aren't familiar with hockey is a very high RPM sport. When you are on the ice, you don't coast.
Right.
If you do, you don't play.
Right.
You go hard for 45 seconds. They've got 4 lines for this reason. They're about 45 seconds, big, massive output, and then they're going to sit for a minute or two. Well, so how do we do? We set up high sprint intervals on the row or the bike, whatever machine or whatever work it is we want to do. And they're going to be 45 on, 90 off. And we're going to train that energy system like that. That is a good, strong hockey protocol to prepare an athlete for performance in that. Right. That is not going to train someone to run a 10K in their fastest time.
Right.
And now it has a time and place in their training. They should be doing a little bit of that. But that's not at that point, again, performance becomes more specific.
Right.
What's the football cadence? It's about 10 to 15 seconds of effort,
Oh,
on
yeah.
average every 90 seconds.
Yeah,
So-
maybe 30 to 60 seconds.
So what we're basically saying here is that for performance and muscular endurance, how you train that muscular endurance will vary dependent on what skill you're looking at the end of the road to develop.
It will.
And to be good at.
Yeah, again,
Yeah,
it's
I've always-
specificity.
But I've also always stood by the fact that like there are typically like the higher level you get into performance and the more minute the details need to be. As either a generalist, like, so if you're someone of like, hey, I'm gonna go, I run a lot of 5Ks, or I do triathlon, or do it now. I do triathlon, like meaning I do 3 or 4 triathlons a year, versus like I do triathlon and I try to make sure I'm qualifying for the Ironman in Kona every year. That's different, okay? Or I do 10 marathons a year, like that's a different specificity there. But for the folks that are like, I would call the weekend warriors, that like, hey, I do want to perform in a certain way. What I find too is like, there's a ton of carryover from an athlete learning like the snatch, maybe, and distributing power and coordination and balance and training in the energy systems of stamina to carry over to doing something on the football field or on the soccer field that like, oh, I have this burst of speed now because I know what it is like to actually fire those muscles quickly. So for our weekend warriors, I also believe that like that performance has the stuff that we do in the gym has strong carryover, even if the movement doesn't look so specific to the sport at hand, right? Now,
yeah, the gym should look like a lab.
Right.
Perfect conditions. The barbell is the most perfect condition on earth. It's perfectly balanced. How many times on the football field did you find an app? Did you try to tackle?
I only tried to find the guys that were balanced. Yeah,
so that's not a lot of tackles.
I wasn't a big guy. So
not a lot of tackles. Huh?
Trying to find the guys smaller
So
than
the gym is like the common ground
Yeah.
where we train that for that muscular endurance, not necessarily specific to a sport, but it translates over outside of the gym.
And I think what people don't, and we talk about this a little bit, the intent of workouts is that I don't know that people always make the connection. Like it's not about the what that we're training, it's the stimulus that we're trying to get. We're trying to get a response in the body. So we're trying to train an energy system, or we're trying to train muscle fibers. Like so I had a client yesterday that we talked about this, like, hey, as we if we create a progression for this movement, I want to maintain the intent of what of the stimulus we're trying to create. So therefore, this exercise may not generate the same stimulus. So I'm gonna find an exercise for you that works for you based on injuries or issues, but that creates the same stimulus in the body to fire our fast twitch muscle fibers, right? Or to be explosive or whatever, so making that connection, and that's where the carryover happens, right? Like if I create this stimulus in the gym, in the lab, okay,
Mhm.
well, my body has learned the stimulus. I'm going to express that somewhere else on the field or in a race or whatever else differently than how it looks in the gym. But I trained that system in the gym.
Yeah, because your training was appropriate. You have experience, and your body has something to go to as you try to up the RPMs, the internal RPMs, which is like we do not operate at our most clear.
Right.
In the middle of it, Muhammad Ali's famous. Everybody's got to play, or is it Mike Tyson?
Tyson.
This was Tyson. Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. This is what happens. That's what this is. It's getting punched in the face, and now we rely on what we have familiarity with. So because you have visited these intervals and these energy systems in your lab, they are there and available for you to use on your field.
Yeah. So then switching to the functional client, right? And so again, this is like the lifestyle stuff. Why? And actually, I'm going to start because I can resonate with this like immediately.
Same. I'm actually like.
I was gonna say, oh, this is mine.
I know.
Yeah.
You know what's funny is we're all gonna
Actually, you're someone I thought about, like, because just some of the work that we just talked about. But
don't have 3 horses at home.
so I have clients that I work. Most of my clients that I work with now are in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. And so I have one that's getting ready to turn 80 actually, and we just talked about this in training. And so we were doing a sled drag. He was dragging the sled. Well, the reality is that I know that this person, the comparison I made from a stamina perspective, and he said, man, this really gets my heart rate up. Like, you know, so technically we're talking about the cardiovascular system, right? But then also his respirations went up, right? But his cardiovascular system went up and his respirations went up to help support the demand that the muscles needed for the work to be created. And I said, hey, does your heart rate get up in the yard when you're doing yard work? And he likes to garden, so he plants a lot of things, and then he's carrying sod, and then he's maybe he pulls his tarp with his leaves on it around the yard, and he's trying to clean up the leaves in the fall. I said, this is that, right? So we were just creating a stimulus in the gym, but that's the functional stuff right there. Like
yard a little bit to exceed his need.
Absolutely. And I said,
this for function is very important.
I said, we're raising the ceiling here so that my hope is that you never actually are challenged as much in your regular daily activities.
Yes, yeah. If we've raised it to this level, we train here knowing that the life demand that you're so passionate about comes to here. That's sub-maximal work. Well, we can do sub-maximal work for a long time because we're building the stamina to do it.
Yep. And you know, one thing I stress to him is like, you know, if you don't do these things, like if we don't train this way, then yard work's going to become more difficult. Gardening is going to become more difficult. And so what's going to happen, and we talked a little bit about this with the cardiorespiratory systems last week, is that when that happens, we become more sedentary. And as we get older, we found like you get in your 70s, you get in your 80s, your 60s, your 70s, or 80s and on, the more active someone can stay, the more, the better quality of life they're going to maintain and the better health they're going to maintain. And if things get hard, they just don't keep doing them because it's more difficult on their system. So that's my story on muscular endurance, especially for our functional athletes. Coach Millie, I think we were talking the other day, so I don't know if you're going to share what I hope you're going to share.
The murmur theories. So for me, when I think of like muscular endurance and just translating into function for every day, I've been thinking a lot about this, how fitness doesn't define who I am, but allows me to be who I am. And just that muscular endurance, you know, I had to unload a couple things that have come up in the past few days, unload a whole load of hay by myself. Well, obviously, yes, muscular endurance, but also like how to position my body so I was safe, so I can still train muscular endurance because I'm not injuring my muscles.
Right.
I had to move a bunch of stall mats and just again.
That's what I was talking
about.
Stall mats.
We're talking about it too.
My coaching career paid off in farm life as well. I could move these stall mats, but I could move them efficiently with the correct body position and or just like carrying a bucket of water because all the hoses are frozen. All those things, it takes muscular endurance. It takes knowing how to move my body correctly so I don't injure myself. But all of that functionality is learned or has been learned in the gym.
Yeah, that's a good point. Anything else on that, Coach?
Yeah, so I know that probably if you look at my Instagram, you think that I fall into the performance category. I actually fancy myself about 80% as a function, and then 20% very curious to see what could happen on the top end. So I actually view myself far more as a function athlete.
Yeah.
For me, I want to not be, if an opportunity presents itself, I just want to be able to say yes. I want to say yes confidently that I can go do that thing, even if it's new.
Yeah.
I don't want to miss an opportunity. You know, I ended up learning to skateboard. My buddy was like, hey, remember when you were saying you want to do that? Hey, I got some time. I was able to just get up and go. Like that, this training allowed me to just take that, learn the new skill, have the stamina to practice it, work on it. And we spent 3 hours out there that day. I'm trying to say yes to all of those opportunities in my life. And for me, that's where this all comes into play is I need to have a cardiovascular and a stamina base that allows me to just simply say yes when I want to. I feel zero limitation per like my prosthetic. Like that doesn't limit me in my life, but this will. This will, in fact, it's what allows me to use this thing. It's what's allowed me to learn how to use this. I'm barely 2 years into this. And because I have that base and I continue to train that base, I'm able to do that. And because again, I've got my base has been built up so much, all this learning has occurred in this sub-maximal threshold, which allows me to accumulate more of the practice. And that's where people make the mistake of thinking that I'm moving faster than people. I'm not getting it done in fewer reps. I just have the base to get the reps in faster.
Mhm.
And again, so it has enabled the function of my life like more than I ever could have hoped whenever I walked into a CrossFit gym the first time, because I told my recruiter I wanted to go special operations, and he said, hey, there's this thing called CrossFit. Our guys doing it are doing better in the training than the ones that aren't. And it was that simple. Like that.
Yeah.
When I walked in at 19, excuse me, that's what I came in there for. I came in because I was a really undersized kid with the mentality that was going to allow me to succeed. I just needed to match the physical skills.
Right.
CrossFit Valley Park helped me do that. And now but I did not realize how it was going to pay off.
Sure.
10 years later. The plan wasn't to lose a leg.
Sure.
That wasn't a part of the original plan.
Never usually.
I mean, I knew it was a possibility.
Always a chance.
That's true.
But no, I appreciate you sharing that, and I think you hit the nail on the head. Just piggybacking on what Coach Millie said, is like it allows you to be who you are, do the things that you want to do.
I get to express myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that we'll find like we could talk about every single one of the 10 general physical skills, and we could
find that parallel.
We could find that parallel to like the whole point of this is like. The reason CrossFit's made such an amazing impact on people and their lives is because it has truly increased their quality of life outside of the gym, because it is so functional. And that's why I tell people all the time, like I know that this is what I wanted to do, because I realized that this was the best way to create the healthiest version of me, so that I could go and do the things I want to do outside of the gym. And that's kind of why I try to express to clients all the time.
It is efficient.
It is efficient.
Yeah, we're back to this, like it's efficient.
Yeah. Well, I think we've kind of touched on like what stamina looks like in real life setting, just in talking like this, but like maybe just share with the clients, like what is an example of a stamina style workout that you might see in like programming.
I do think that today is the best example of that.
Yeah.
So for those of you that are, because this is not going to air today.
Yeah.
It is, we have every 90 seconds for 8 rounds, 1 hang snatch, 1 snatch from the floor. The Olympic lifts, which the snatch is one of the 2, are very power intensive movements. So we've got our power, we've got our high ceiling threshold in terms of power, because it's a high power output movement, and then we're looking to repeat the effort. Can we continue to do it, and can we continue to execute and apply and apply and apply and apply and apply? Now we have I say only 8 rounds, but like that's a big part of, like, to me that is like the most obvious. If I'm truly going at stamina, I can go after other things like this as well. But if I get an athlete, let's just say they're getting ready for football season, and they're going, and we're getting close to them getting into training, I'm not going to be trying to have them front squatting for a max load, but I'm going to try to get to how heavy can we go if we do one rep every 45 seconds,
Right.
Or how long can we keep that going?
Right.
There's both sides of that coin. How long can we keep that going? If that's the case, I would be measuring their speed of the bar, and then, okay, we're going to go until your speed drops below,
right,
or we're going to continue to add weight. And those are power output movements put into a time demand. Yep. And again, that gives us it's the repeats, it's the repeat workouts.
Yeah. So and that's I noted one a couple of days ago that we did in our programming, and it was a AMRAP, but it was a broken AMRAP. We did 10 minutes and then we did 8 minutes. But like you said, you hit the nail on the head. It's the repeat effort. So even if you're in a standard, like, so Coach gave a great example of a barbell type strength power movement, like not strength movement, but power output, Olympic lift, high skill. Okay.
Yeah, they just happen to be
high skill, high demand. So that's perfect example. If you switch gears and you say, okay, well, like what would be a typical almost every CrossFit workout you do is a stamina workout, okay?
Because you work instead of just cardio.
Yes, if you're doing an AMRAP, like think about it this way. Well, yeah, but I'm not really getting a break because I'm going to the next move. right? But you have a break on this other movement. And when you come back around for the next round, so when we do 15 slam balls, and then you have 2 or 3 other movements that you do, that's a break on your 15 slam balls. Now it doesn't feel like a break because you do some other stuff. But when you come back through, now you have to repeat that same movement again. And that's where it's getting that repeated effort. Now,
And not every interval is long.
No.
Like not every interval is long. I've had people go like, hey, you're going to do this every 10 seconds, every 15 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but just one,
Yep.
but you're going to keep doing it every 15 seconds.
And that's where you hit the nail on the head. There's a couple of ways to train that. Like sometimes we want fatigue to set into someone, right? We want their fatigue, we want their capacity to be challenged, right? So we want them to push that upper limit or that ceiling. But other times we, like you mentioned in the snatch today, the other times we want them to have a longer break because we want that sustained effort. So I want rep 1 and 2 to have the same power and the same speed as rep 10 and 11. And so there is different ways to train that. It's all depending on how we want the energy systems to be worked or how we want. And in a barbell workout like today, we want somebody's capacity or ability to somewhat maintain throughout the efforts, because it doesn't do us any good when we're training a high skill, high speed lift to go, hey, I actually want you to be tired by rep number 10 and that rep to be crappy in technique because of fatigue, not because of, now we know that not every rep's going to be perfect, but the goal is, hey, I want to be perfecting the reps every time.
Operate at the top of your threshold?
Yes. Yeah. So that great example there, coach. So, okay, well, we probably talked way longer on stamina than we should have, but
I thought I was going.
we were trying to actually create some stamina in your ability to listen to us. So, but hey, I hope you guys enjoyed learning a little bit more about our general physical skills. Next week, we're going to discuss another one of those topics. I think it's going to be strength. We're going to be kind of deliberate in how we communicate these things. So we're going to go through our top 4, then we're going to go through our bottom 4, and then we're going to actually meet at the middle and speed and power at the end of all this. But if you have any, this is just to help people understand more about the why behind the way we do things at CrossFit Metrics. If you have more questions or you want to sit down and talk with us coaches about this, you can jump on our website, CrossFitMetrics.com. You can click the Learn More button. You can book an appointment with someone from our staff. Actually, Millie's probably the first person that reaches out to you when you do that. And you get to sit down, chat a little bit about your goals, and see if there's anything we can help you. So thanks, coaches, again for your time today. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll see you next week.